Riley Leonard takes a knee. It's one of the biggest wins in Duke football history. Down goes Clemson. The Devils win it 28-7.
We're going to have some fun tonight in Durham, Mr. Pash.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Blue Devil Blitz. I'm your host, Ranjan Jindal, here joined, as always, by my co-host, Caleb Dudley. Caleb, how you doing, man?
Another week of Blue Devil Blitz.
Another week.
Excited to be back.
Yeah, man. Exciting stuff. And today we are joined by a regular guest, Dom Fenoglio. Dom, welcome to the podcast.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, man. So today we are going to recap the SMU game, which Dom covered in the stadium in the press box. Duke fell to SMU 28-27 on the most heartbreaker of heartbreakers. We'll break that down, talk about kind of what went wrong there at the end, and also maybe what went right. And then we also have a special guest, Zach Cohen of the Miami Hurricane, will be here later in the show to talk about that upcoming game. Duke is going to travel to Coral Gables to face Miami Saturday at noon in another road contest. Schedule doesn't get easier for Duke, so we'll preview that matchup as well. But before we begin, as always, this podcast is brought to you by Duke Stores. Supports your favorite Duke team, home to the only collection of merchandise in the world that comes to you straight from Duke University. Go to shop.duke.edu for all your Duke merch. All right, so let's talk about the SMU game. Like I mentioned, 28-27. Duke had a chance there to win it at the end. Field goal got blocked, but in overtime, SMU scored, and Duke also scored, but went for two and was not able to convert. So I'll just start with takeaways from you, Dom, because I know you were there in the press box. So general takeaways from that game.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to a few things for me that I am taking away from this game. First thing is the offense played, in my opinion, its best football all season.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Malik Murphy really looked great. I thought the schemes were much better. The offense was much more fluid. Even when the run game couldn't really get going in the first half, Murphy was able to get the screen passes. Some of those slants came open. And, I can't remember dating back to non-conference play the last time Murphy connected with it on a deep shot like he did to Quayshawn Brown in the first half. I thought that was really a lot of encouraging signs for the Blue Devils. But, on the flip side of that, the fourth quarter especially was tough on the offense. I do think it was somewhat unfair to criticize the offense's performance. I really, you could talk the whole podcast about the defense's performance and still not say enough. They really, forcing 6 turnovers was ridiculous. It felt like watching the game in the fourth quarter as I was writing. Every single time SMU got the ball, I thought I thought Duke was going to get an interception or a fumble. It was just kind of unreal. It was almost unbelievable. And, the other biggest takeaway I had, though, is, after a game like that, I was expecting the team to be upset. I was expecting the team to be angry. It's very easy. You see it all the time in college football. Teams kind of take losses like these personally. It would have been very easy to turn on Todd Polino after this game in that locker room. I mean, certainly can't put it on his shoulders, the loss, but anytime a kicker misses 3 field goals, he's going to get some unfair criticism. But going into that press conference after the game with Manny, Diaz, Kendi Charles, and Eli Pankel all spoke, and all 3 of them, I was blown away by their poise, their composure, their compassion. Just the way they handled it was very, very emotionally mature. And that was, to me, the biggest takeaway from the game and the biggest takeaway of what I think this team is capable of moving forward. This loss could have very easily set them back and, led to a 6-6, 7-5 type of season. I'm more confident now than I was before the game that they'll finish with 8 or 9 wins.
Yeah, well, yeah, good analysis there. Just throughout the season, seeing this team, their mental state, obviously after wins, it's easier. But even after Georgia Tech, Caleb and I were there was still they accepted the loss, but seemed to flush it past them. And then even against North Carolina, when you're down by so many points, just the ability to stay in the game and have short-term memory is something that I think Coach Diaz has done a great job with this group. For me on the defensive end, I was also impressed by the fact that in the second half, the takeaways were there, but it was also limiting SMU moving down the field because SMU was able to move the ball down the field in the first half, had a couple of goal line fumbles there, reminiscent of Clemson week 1 last year. But in the second half, it was just completely stifling that defense, and you could see Kevin Jennings just be completely rattled. in his head. He couldn't complete throws that he normally does, and the defense, just it was hard for them to get a first down.
Yeah, I mean, going off that, I think the stat sheet, the box score can be a little bit deceiving
Mhm.
because SMU's yards were kind of gaudy, it was
Yeah.
big numbers. But two of those, or I mean, maybe 150 of those yards came on 2 plays. They had one went for a touchdown.
Yeah.
The other, I forget the receiver's name, was tackled at the 1 yard line. The defense stopped him 4 downs in a row. Yeah, Roderick. He caught both of those deep
Daniels.
balls. And so, I mean, I didn't go back to watch the film to see why he was open in both of those plays, but you take away those 2 plays, 2 catches for 150 yards.
Yeah.
That really says a lot about what the defense did.
That's crazy. I'll give some of my offensive thoughts in a second, but Caleb, you first. What other takeaways did you have from that game?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the thing that was kind of surprising is if you look at the box score, Duke forced 6 turnovers and had more time of possession and lost, and that seems almost impossible. I know we talked about off the podcast about Duke's had kind of one heartbreaker loss every year we've been in school. This seemed like maybe the next one in that trajectory. The main thing to me is I really like the decision at the end in overtime to go for 2. I thought Coach Diaz, it's a fine choice, and he said, "Will you try to win in the first inning?" Or what was the quote? Yeah,
Yeah.
try to win in the first inning, and I thought it was a decent play. I thought Malik Murphy may have been able to run it, but we haven't really seen that this year. I thought the throw was fine. Look, it might have been a little premature contact, but obviously they didn't call it. So
It's a very politically correct way of saying pass
so
interference.
not a flag. But to me, I just thought the offense, they had 3 turnovers, or the defense had 3 turnovers back to back to back in the fourth quarter, and both all started on SMU side of the field, did not score a single point. Some of that was game script, some of that was just bad offense, and I thought that's something that really hurts for Duke fans and is something that they got to clean up going forward.
Yeah, going back to that first extra point, I don't think that was all on Todd. The snap and kind of hold were off, but I do think that set him off kind of mentally, especially somebody. I think he had made all of his extra points all season, so
His entire career.
Wow, yeah. So I can't even imagine the mental toll that has if you miss your first one. But like Diaz said after the press conference, he has total faith in Polino, and I think the team does as well. On offense, for me, somebody must have told Eli Pankel before this week, like, this better be your week, man. Because Jordan Moore's still kind of banged up. He played a lot more this game than he did against Florida State, but still seems to be working his way back. So Pankel was just phenomenal. He really became that target on third downs, especially even over the middle of the field. And then he had that deep catch in overtime. But he's a talented receiver, and if he can get separation and he can get confidence, that really will open things up for Jordan Moore and even the rushing game. If Jaquez Moore comes back, we'll see. But Star Thomas, regardless, I think his performance in that game is a really welcoming sign for Duke moving forward. And even the other receivers, Quayshawn Brown had a few good catches, like the deep ball. He had one other one that almost was caught, just a little bit too tall for Quayshawn there. But yeah.
Yeah, mentioning Quayshawn Brown, I think he was one of the other players that really impressed me. I really liked the way Murphy and Brewer got him involved in the screen game.
Mhm.
It really seems like Quayshawn Brown is right now the guy, maybe with Jordan Moore still a little banged up, that's catching a lot of those shorter passes on first and second down, whereas Eli Pankel's more let's run the curl down the sideline on third down, let's run a slant to get an easy completion for third down. But I was really impressed with Quayshawn Brown, and really he's doing a great job returning punts. He had a big punt return in this game, and the way he's developed this season has been impressive.
Yeah, and then for Malik Murphy, I thought he made some really good throws. One thing that I think it was Tom Luganbill said on the broadcast that I kind of liked. He said Murphy's just got to hit his layups, and there was a couple of plays. There was like a 4th and 1 or 2 conversion that was a pretty open throw that he missed, and then there was one other short throw over the middle that was open. And if he can hit those, he can get much more consistent because the tough throws, I mean, Malik can make really well. There's a couple throws to Pankel there that I was really impressed with, and obviously the deep ball he has in his arsenal. But if he can get those short passing game throws consistently and almost automatically, that completely opens up the offense, in my opinion. So that's what I'm looking for Murphy against Miami. Can you hit your layups? And that does wonders for confidence as well.
Yeah, I think the last thing is going forward in the season. Today on the press conference, the players said that a big focus has been to take the emotion away from the game, but keep the passion that they played with on Saturday. And I think obviously it's gonna be tough for them to move on from a game where they were this close to being 7-1 and probably ranked in the going into this big game against Miami. But I think if they can keep that kind of same mindset and obviously Dom said they weren't very defeated after the game, then it's a good moment for them even despite the loss.
Yeah. All right. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about that game coming up with Zach Cohen of the Miami Hurricane. All right, welcome back, guys, to the Blue Devil Blitz. Like I mentioned earlier, we will now be joined by Zach Cohen, who's a contributing writer for the Miami Hurricane over there. Zach, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you guys for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. Yeah, so just to get started, obviously know Miami's off to a great start, 8-0 this season. Just for big picture, what do you think has been the biggest difference between this year's Miami team and the teams in years past? Is it simply the dynamic quarterback in Cam Ward being able to, extend plays all the time, or is there more to that? What's been the difference between, this team?
Well, I think it starts with Cam Ward. You pretty much said it best. Dynamic quarterback. He could run, and he's a great leader. He had a great halftime speech against Florida State, telling the team that they run Florida pretty much, and they need to win this game in order to restore order in the state. But also, Coach Cristobal has built a team through the transfer portal and the recruiting classes, the past few recruiting classes, and it has helped them to be able to play well and be very good and make them 8-0, and hopefully they'll continue that going into towards the latter end of the season.
Awesome.
Yeah, obviously Miami's 8-0, but there was 3 weeks there in a row where they had one-score games, some close games there, Virginia Tech, Cal, and Louisville. To you, what's been the most vulnerable point for Miami this year? Where do you think, if there's obviously a weak point on an undefeated team, where do you think that is?
I think the defense. They've been very inconsistent most of the games. I mean, even last game, like with the penalties, I think Tyler Barron had a roughing the passer penalty, kind of killed them and led Florida State to score. And even a few Florida State offensive players like blew past the Miami secondary. It was kind of unexcusable there. Florida State doesn't have good offense. Don't even let them throw the ball deep at all. Uh, yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Just the defense needs to be stronger going into the last few games of the season, especially when they're going to play harder offenses going into the ACC title game. They'll probably play Clemson, I would assume, but I'm not going to speak too far ahead on that. And hopefully the college playoffs too.
Zach, were you watching that Cal game up at 2 a.m.? Me and Caleb were actually in Atlanta. That was crazy.
Yeah. Obviously, you always hear about, obviously, the team plays at Hard Rock, and you always kind of hear jokes about the students not really coming out and the fans not really coming out. What's been kind of the environment and the vibe around campus about this team this year?
Yeah, everybody's super excited. Just, everybody's saying hi to the football players around campus.
Yeah.
You kind of want to leave them alone. You kind of want to treat them like normal students. But yeah, we have a president, the seventh president of the university. He was just named the new president, and he really loves school sports and school spirit. So he's been around and getting people hype about the team.
That's good, man. That's awesome. Yeah, it's definitely something like here at Duke too. We're trying to get that football culture increased, and that's something student engagement is, I think, the most important. You mentioned the college football playoff and the ACC championship. What do you think the ceiling is for this team? Like, do you think this Miami team, can go all the way, can win a couple playoff games? What do you see as the ceiling for this group?
Well, Coach Cristobal has said it best in his post game press conferences that they haven't reached their full potential yet, and there's still more work to do. But if they hone in practice, get that defense better, even get the offense stronger, and I believe they can win the ACC title game, and they can make a deep run in the college football playoffs. But they still need to work hard because there's still a lot of work to do.
Yeah. And turning our attention to the game this Saturday. I don't know how much you've watched Duke this season, but what do you think are the keys for Miami, like to win this game? What do you think? What are you going to be looking for? And what do you think Miami needs to do to win?
Well, I think the offensive line needs to protect Cam Ward better.
Yeah.
Your guys' defensive line is very good, and I would say Malik Murphy. He's a solid quarterback. You need our defensive line needs to attack him and guard your wide receiver.
Jordan Moore, maybe. Oh, Eli Pankel. Yeah.
Against uh, SMU, and even Star Thomas. Star Thomas is very shifty from what I've noticed. So just it will be a test for our defense, and I don't think Miami can take this game lightly.
Yeah, it's great analysis. You know, are they talking at all about Manny Diaz going back, homecoming to Miami? He was there for a while as a head coach. I don't know, that might be interesting. Have you heard anything about that over there?
I've heard about it a little bit. He was a
Yeah.
head coach. He does have history here. But I don't think it's gonna,
Yeah.
affect anything. I think Miami's just gonna be playing hard football.
Yeah. You got a score prediction for us for Saturday?
I do. I would say I'm gonna go Miami 42,
Oh,
Duke 30. That's what I'm gonna go.
high scoring. Okay.
I
Yeah.
think it's gonna be a high scoring game. Uh, and yeah, it's gonna be a good game.
Awesome. I like it. High scoring. All right. Well, you're on the record now, so we'll look back. You guys have anything else for him?
Just anything that stories we should check out or people we should be following ahead of this game.
Well, I think Xavier Restrepo, he's on the all-time list for receiving yards and receptions at Miami. He has an opportunity to jump up on those lists if he does have a big game. And I think even the Maui Noah brothers, very good on Kiko is on the defense. He's been dominant the whole season, and Francisco on the offensive line had a little bit of a rough game. Let two defenders by him against Florida State, but that's the nature of the game. You're not going to make a perfect play every time. And like Damian Martinez has been very good. The running game has been moving in the right direction for Miami. So just look out for that as he NFL player comparison for you would be like Derrick Henry, both hard-nosed
Oh.
runners, and they are hard to tackle.
Yeah. And lastly, just anything you want to plug as far as your paper socials for people to follow. What's going on the Miami Hurricane website?
Yeah, Miami Hurricane. We're talking. We got the sports section, arts, entertainment, all those sections. But just to talk more about sports, which I work with. We're covering all Miami sports, and yeah, we write. I think we write really great quality articles. Just check us out at themiamihurricane.com. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this game. And yeah,
Awesome, Zach. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it, dude. Looking forward to Saturday.
thank you.
Thanks, Zach. All right, now back here with Caleb. Let's get to your thoughts on this game. I know, like I mentioned, another top 25 clash on the road at noon. What do you think Duke needs to do to maybe steal one here in Coral Gables?
Yeah, I think stealing one's definitely going to be tough. Obviously, I think there'll be a little extra juice. The players keep denying it about Manny going back to Miami, but I definitely think there's something there. There always is.
Mm-hmm.
I think Zach's prediction might be a little high. I think 30 for Duke's offense is a lot, and 42 to give up by Duke is a lot. But I do think Miami wins. I think the spread is maybe 20 or 21. I don't think Miami covers that unless, like garbage time, they just get, break a play or something. But I think I'll go Miami 27, Duke 10.
All right. Yeah, I think the biggest key, Zach mentioned it, but it's going to be the line of scrimmage here because I think one thing that Miami's done better this year is, played better. Their defensive line has been pretty good, and then they need to protect Cam Ward, but that's the difference between this team being like good and great and like elite, in my opinion. So if Miami can protect Cam Ward and really neutralize that Duke defensive line, which played phenomenal against SMU, I mean, Kennedy Charles and Aaron Hall and Wesley Williams all did phenomenal, then I don't see how Duke wins this game. But if the Blue Devils can pressure Cam Ward and force him into some ill-advised throws, sometimes he has the tendency to do that. We saw that against Cal and VT a couple times. Then you can really steal some picks from him, kind of like Duke did against Kevin Jennings. I think it's a similar game plan in a sense,
Yeah,
right?
no,
Like
I
they're
definitely
both
think it is.
dual threat quarterbacks that are just phenomenally talented. So that's going to be the key. And then also, if you get turnovers, capitalize on them, obviously.
Yep.
And I mentioned what I think Malik needs to do offensively is hit his layups on these throws. And then, open up the playbook. Don't be afraid to check it deep, but mix that up because, like Zach said, this Miami secondary has been vulnerable at times and has given up some big plays. So that'll be my key for Duke. Score prediction. I'm going to go like 28-20,
Ooh,
kind of
close one.
28-17 vibe. I think Miami will win. Similar to SMU, but yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
I might change that.
No, yeah. I mean, I think we're both under, the spread. I think the spread seems a little
Yeah,
strong. Just,
21, yeah.
I mean, I know Miami is obviously great and Duke's coming off a loss, but it seems like with a defense that good, it'd be tough for them to get blown out. But we'll see.
Yeah, we shall see. All right, let's talk a little bit about the ACC and national. We're getting close. Next week is the first release of the college football playoff rankings.
Yeah.
But we'll start with the ACC and do our classic stock up, stock down.
Yeah, I can get us started. Stock up, I think it's got to be Pitt, man. Pitt's undefeated. They absolutely, I mean, I was flabbergasted watching that Syracuse game. Was that Thursday?
Thursday, yeah.
And I on this podcast, I've been promoting Syracuse again and again, but I mean, Kyle McCord, he looked lost out there against Pitt. Would they have 3 pick sixes?
3, yeah.
And
4 interceptions maybe, and 3 of them were pick six.
I think he had more than 4.
Yeah, okay. Wow.
But either way, Pitt is still undefeated. So we gotta shout them out this week on the road at SMU. Pretty excited.
Ooh,
Yeah, 8 p.m. ACC Network. Pretty excited for that one. I think we'll see if Pitt is really, really an ACC contender. But obviously, I mean, credit to Pat Narduzzi and bringing Eli Holstein. He's been great. And, Pitt wasn't anything special last year. And now all of a sudden they're kind of back to looking like when they had Kenny Pickett on the side, out there. And so good for Pitt. And then stock down, I'll go with Virginia. Obviously, Virginia lost to Clemson. It's hard to beat Clemson, give them a pass there. But then this week, man, they hosted UNC and just got their doors blown off, 41-14. I don't really know what happened there. I mean, I wouldn't say UNC is anything, that much better than Virginia or anything. But it was not pretty. Calandria had 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. Tony Muskett did come in. I love Tony Muskett. He had a touchdown for him, but they ran for 18 yards as a team.
Oh, see, that's not good.
Is really bad. I mean, geez. So yeah, I don't know what's up with Virginia. They've lost 3 in a row. So they're my stock down.
Yeah, that game's crazy. I mean, Virginia's first 2 losses against Clemson and Louisville, they played pretty well, but this game was just brutal. For my stock up, I'm gonna go with Wake. Wake's won 2 in a row. It's 2 games that are against lesser opponents, but still on the road. Wake beat UConn, a team Duke is familiar with, on the road, and then Stanford as well, which is always difficult if you're gonna cross country road trip this. But I think for Wake, the offense has been really good. Claiborne at running back and Bachmeier. If they can be consistent and Bachmeier takes care of the ball, this is a pretty good offense. I mean, this is an offense that can score a bunch of points. Against Clemson at the beginning, they did score a couple touchdowns, but then kind of got careless with the ball. But Wake has a couple more favorable games left and Duke at the end of the season. So for Blue Devil fans, that'll be really important, that game, especially depending on where Duke stands record-wise and for bowl game placements and all that good stuff. For my stock down, I'm going to go with Stanford, who's also lost that game. But Stanford's lost 5 in a row. It's been tough games, to be honest. They lost to SMU 40-10 at home before that Wake game and just have not been competitive in any of their recent games. They look good beating Syracuse at the beginning, and obviously they have great talent offensively. I mean, Ashton Daniels is a good quarterback, and then Aya Manor is a fantastic receiver, but just have not been able to produce offensively enough to keep up with the teams they played. So kind of a rough transition in the first year for Stanford, along with Cal, I guess. But Cal did get there.
No, Cal.
It's not an ACC win, but
look, man, Cal is trying their best. Cal's been much better than Stanford.
Yeah,
by much better.
Yeah. Cal's trying their best. Cal's lost 4 ACC games
by like 10 points. Yeah. So,
dang, I feel bad for Cal. But Cal and Wake Forest are playing this weekend, and Cal has a little bit more of a favorable schedule going forward. Nationally, what do we got this weekend? We got some good games this weekend.
I mean, Penn State, Ohio State's the big one.
That's the biggest,
obviously. Penn State last week, kind of a weird.
Yeah, same with Ohio State.
Kind of a weird situation for both teams. Penn State benched Drew Aller, went to Bo Pribula, I think is how you say his name, and they did end up winning against Wisconsin. It's at Happy Valley this weekend. It's gonna be fun. It's a noon game, which kind of is a bummer to me, but
big noon kickoff, man.
Yeah, but I mean, kind of a bummer to me. And but Ohio State's 3.5-point favorites. I saw Will Howard this week or today, maybe yesterday, say that he wanted to go to Penn State, grew up in Pennsylvania, and they didn't want him, and so that'll be a big one, obviously, for maybe Big Ten second place supremacy. I know Oregon also this week laid the gauntlet down on Illinois, so big things happening in the Big Ten.
That's funny because Ohio State has been doing this thing sometimes where they'll stay close with teams and then blow them out in the second half. But against Nebraska, it was close for 4 quarters. I still think they're like extremely talented, one of, if not the most talented teams in the country. And Will Howard played a pretty good game. I mean, statistically, he's playing great. But sometimes they just have plays that they either get stalled out, miss field goals, or turnovers offensively. But they can move the ball down the field, and if they have talented running backs, obviously Henderson and Judkins. But if they get that running game going. That'll be a great matchup against a stout Penn State defense. So I'm excited to see that game. It'll probably be a good low-scoring battle over there. One other game I'm watching for, maybe upset alert for A&M, who's been on a hot streak. A&M had an impressive performance against LSU in that second half. They lead the SEC right now, but they travel to Williams-Brice Stadium and play South Carolina, which is a tough place to play for any team. And South Carolina's defense is just phenomenal. They really get after the quarterback. So depending on who starts, well, regardless, it'll be important for Texas A&M to take care of the ball and produce offensively, because if not, a night game in Williams-Brice can be a tough one.
Yeah, and I think just one more thing to note is the group of 5 might have lost a contender this week. Poor Navy. They went up to MetLife and they got absolutely clobbered. Notre Dame put the hammer on them, and Riley Leonard looked really good. I think it was 51-14 was the final score. So it kind of seems like Boise State maybe is now the, if we had Andrew Long here, I'm sure he would echo this. But they look like the favorite to be the group of 5, and
they had a great win too against UNLV.
They did, and they've looked good, and I guess we'll see next week
where they put them.
How the committee ranks these group of 5 conferences.
Yes, that will be interesting for sure. Another great week of football. Sound like a broken record, but this is a wild season of college football, so that'll be fun. Check out all our stuff on the website, Coverage for Football. We also have our basketball edition coming out this Friday. Our features for basketball are going to be going up a few a day throughout the next few days for men's and women's basketball. And then obviously football coverage is still on the site. We also have election coverage, all that good stuff. So all that at DukeChronicle.com. Thank you so much for listening. Next week, we will recap the Miami game and preview another road contest, but a little bit closer one for Duke at NC State. Thanks again to Zach for coming on. This was a great show. For Caleb Dudley, I'm Ranjan Jindal. This has been the Blue Devil Blitz.